9:15 a.m., September 23, 2025. The South China Sea looked deceptively calm, but under the glassy surface, it was a powder keg ready to erupt. The U.S. oil tanker Liberty Sentinel plowed forward, carrying 550,000 barrels of crude oil, a fortune worth $42 billion on global markets. On board, 27 American civilian crew members. Its destination, Puerto Princesa, Palawan, a forward U.S. base just 310 nautical miles away. By its side, the guided missile destroyer USS Barry DDG-52, an Arleigh Burke-class warship bristling with radar, interceptors, and firepower, a $2 billion floating fortress with 370 sailors and marines aboard. But lurking on the horizon was a shadow, a Chinese-type 052D destroyer, Beijing's pride, with 64 missile tubes and advanced radar systems. Its silhouette was clear on American scopes, its intentions unmistakable. Claimed by source, analysts later said Beijing had pre-approved limited engagements against U.S. supply lines in disputed waters. This claim has not been confirmed by the Pentagon, but multiple open-source reports suggested China wanted to send a message before U.S. elections that it controlled the South China Sea. At 9:45 a.m., silence shattered. 12 YJ-12 supersonic anti-ship missiles ripped into the air from the Chinese destroyer. Each missile weighed over 3 tons, carrying a 450-kilogram warhead, flying at nearly Mach 3, almost 2,300 miles per hour. The target was clear, the Liberty Sentinel. USS Barry responds. Inside the USS Barry's Combat Information Center, alarms blared. Red strobes flashed. The crew went to battle stations. The Aegis combat system locked on. Vertical launch hatches hissed open. Standard missile interceptors roared skyward. The ship's Phalanx CIWS Gatling guns spun up, barrels glowing red. In seconds, a silver curtain of defense filled the skies. 10 incoming missiles destroyed mid-flight. Explosions echoed across the sea, shockwaves pounding the waves. Sailors shouted in triumph, but 2 YJ-12S broke through. Impact on Liberty Sentinel. The first slammed into the starboard hull, ripping steel open like paper. The second plowed into the massive fuel tanks. The result was apocalyptic. A fireball 400 feet high erupted, engulfing the tanker in black smoke and flames. Steel bent, decks ruptured. Burning oil poured into the sea, igniting the waters themselves. On board, 3 American sailors were killed instantly. Another 12 badly burned or wounded. Some were thrown overboard into the black, suffocating sea of fire and smoke. The cost in seconds, $42 billion in crude oil lost. Unverified. Some reports claim the strike was timed to coincide with satellite overpasses, ensuring Chinese state media would broadcast the explosion live within minutes. U.S. intelligence has not confirmed this, but the speed of Beijing's propaganda release suggested coordination. A propaganda victory. At 10 a.m., Beijing declared mission accomplished. State commanders beamed congratulations to the Chinese fleet. Social media in China exploded with triumphant posts, proof they claimed that American steel could bleed, but it was an illusion. On the deck of USS Barry, fire crews battled the inferno. Damage control sealed off compartments. Marines dragged their wounded shipmates to safety. Helicopters hovered overhead, lowering ropes to pluck survivors from the boiling sea. Washington was already awake. The strike on Liberty Sentinel wasn't just a naval skirmish, it was an act of war. The human toll. By 10:15 a.m., the scene was catastrophic. 3 Americans dead, 12 severely wounded, $42 billion in oil cargo, lost 1 crippled tanker, smoke visible 60 miles away. The burning tanker was a beacon of weakness. Beijing celebrated, but Washington's patience evaporated. This is no longer escort duty, one officer radioed. This is retaliation. Retaliation ordered. At 10:20 a.m., encrypted orders crackled over USS Barry's comms. Retaliate immediately. Within minutes, assets worth over $2.5 billion were activated. From Guam, 2 EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft, each fitted with $90 million jamming pods, launched into the skies. From Whiteman Air Force Base, 2 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, each valued at $2.1 billion, vectored toward the South China Sea, payload bays heavy with bunker busters. From USS Barry, 10 Tomahawk cruise missiles locked onto Woody Island, Beijing's crown jewel in the disputed waters. The objective was no longer defense. It was to destroy Woody Island's fortress, radar arrays, HQ-9 missile batteries, and its 2,700-meter runway used by Chinese J-11 and J-16 fighters. The price of China's attack was about to be paid in full. By 10:40 a.m., the American strike package was in motion. Growlers jammed the spectrum. Stealth bombers closed in. Tomahawks sat primed in their tubes. On Woody Island, 2,000 PLA personnel were unaware that the hammer was seconds away. But how devastating would America's counterstrike be? Would Woody Island survive the storm, or would it become a smoldering graveyard in less than half an hour? Disclaimer: this video is for educational and documentary purposes only. Some battlefield reports are unverified or based on open-source intelligence. No graphic or harmful content is shown. Their target, Woody Island. For Beijing, this was a fortress, a centerpiece of its South China Sea dominance. The island bristled with HQ-9 long-range missile batteries, radar domes, hardened command bunkers, and hangars sheltering J-11 and J-16 fighters. At least 2,000 PLA Navy personnel were stationed there, convinced they were safe behind walls of steel and concrete. But America was coming. The electronic storm minutes earlier, 2 EA-18G Growlers had entered the battle space. Their mission was silent but devastating. Electronic warfare. Fitted with next-generation jamming pods worth $90 million each, the Growlers blanketed the airwaves. Within seconds, radar screens on Woody Island turned to chaos. Echoes multiplied, false signatures appeared, friend and foe blurred together. Chinese commanders screamed into radios, but the radios were dead. Entire communication networks went silent. HQ-9 operators, trained to fire at U.S. aircraft, now saw only static, claimed by source. Analysts later suggested that in addition to jamming, U.S. Cyber Command launched satellite-based attacks on Chinese communications. This has never been confirmed, but the synchronization of radar failure and radio collapse suggests a deeper strike than jamming alone. For the PLA garrison, the skies were blind. For the Americans, it was the perfect cover. The bomber strike, 10:47 a.m. The hammer fell. The B-2s opened their bomb bays. 8 GBU-57s dropped free. Silent at first, then igniting their rocket motors as they guided toward Woody Island. The first impact tore straight through reinforced concrete, collapsing an entire radar array. The second cracked a hardened bunker wide open. Shockwaves rippled across the island, tearing doors from hinges and shattering windows miles away. By the third and fourth impacts, the PLA's command structure was gone. Headquarters that had taken years to build were reduced to rubble in under 3 minutes. For Chinese soldiers on the ground, it felt like the sky itself was falling. Tomahawks from the sea. At sea, USS Barry had already prepared its strike. 10 Tomahawk cruise missiles streaked low across the waves, flying at just 550 miles per hour, hugging the sea surface to avoid detection. The first 4 slammed into the 2,700-meter runway, leaving craters nearly 50 feet wide. The strip was shredded beyond repair. Chinese fighters could no longer launch or land. 2 Tomahawks were intercepted mid-flight by HQ-9 batteries, one of the few moments of success for Beijing's defenders that day. The remaining 4 hit Woody Island's naval port and massive aviation fuel depots. The result was catastrophic. 1.2 million gallons of aviation fuel erupted in a fireball that rose 3,000 feet into the sky. The explosion shook the island like an earthquake, igniting secondary fires across aircraft hangars. The island burns. By 11:05 a.m., Woody Island was a furnace. The B-2 strikes had gutted the command center. The Tomahawks had obliterated the runway and set the port ablaze. Secondary detonations spread as fuel tanks ignited and ammunition depots exploded. 22 J-11 and J-16 fighters destroyed on the ground, their twisted frames burning in chain reactions. 2 Type 056 corvettes reduced to smoldering wrecks in the port. Bunkers caved in, trapping soldiers inside. Ammunition depots exploded with the force of 200 tons of TNT, scattering debris across the island. Unverified. Some reports claimed American MQ-9 Reaper drones were overhead, recording the entire strike for live Pentagon analysis. While no video has been released, the Pentagon has a history of using drones as battlefield observers, so the claim is plausible but not confirmed. What was once China's most fortified base in the South China Sea was now an inferno. The counterstrike unleashed. 10:42 a.m. September 23, 2025. The Pacific skies were clear. The South China Sea shimmered beneath the sun. But above those waters, vengeance was already airborne. 2 B-2. Spirit stealth bombers slid silently across the upper atmosphere at 36,000 feet. To the naked eye, they were invisible. To radar, they barely existed. Each bomber carried the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, a 30,000-pound bunker-busting bomb designed to crack underground fortresses. It was the heaviest non-nuclear weapon in the U.S. arsenal, a weapon so destructive that entire hardened bases could be erased in minutes. Our human toll. The cost for Beijing was staggering. Initial estimates counted 150 PLA personnel dead and 325 wounded or missing. Many were trapped under collapsed hangars, cut off from rescue as flames spread. For survivors, the island became a death trap. Black smoke, burning fuel, and collapsing steel. This was not just a defeat. It was the deadliest strike against a PLA base since the Korean War. The world reacts. By 11:30 a.m., satellite images of Woody Island aflame circled the globe. From Tokyo to London, news anchors interrupted broadcasts to show the destruction. Live feeds showed flames clawing thousands of feet into the air. In Washington, Pentagon officials briefed Congress. The United States had responded with precision and overwhelming force. In Beijing, the silence was deafening. No casualty reports, no triumphant propaganda. Just silence. For China, the illusion of invincibility was gone. America's price. But the United States had paid dearly as well. The Liberty Sentinel still burned, its 550,000 barrels of crude oil lost forever. The financial toll, $42 billion. 3 Americans killed, 12 wounded, families shattered, a ship crippled beyond repair. On USS Barry, exhausted sailors fought to save their shipmates, even as smoke blackened their decks. America had answered with steel and fire, but it had not escaped unscathed. Strategic lessons. By noon, the South China Sea had changed. China had fired the first strike. America had answered with overwhelming force. Beijing lost $3.8 billion in hardware, 2 warships, 22 frontline fighters, its best airstrip, and its most valuable outpost in the South China Sea. Its propaganda collapsed in 30 minutes. Washington lost a tanker, oil worth billions, and brave sailors. But the message was unmistakable. Deterrence is not words. It is steel in the water, discipline under fire, and the will to retaliate when struck. Across Asia, allies saw the truth. In Tokyo, Manila, Hanoi, and Taipei, leaders watched not just flames on an island, but proof that the balance of power had not shifted east. The final message. As the sun set over the South China Sea, wreckage floated across the horizon. The Liberty Sentinel smoldered. Woody Island burned. China had gambled on humiliation. Instead, it suffered its worst defeat in modern history. For the United States, the lesson was eternal. Attack America, and you will face the storm. The oceans remember. America still stands. Do you think this clash proves the U.S. Navy is still the unchallenged guardian of the seas? Or is this just the beginning of a much larger war?